Joining me now with more on food safety is Dr. Mel Kramer from West Palm Beach in Florida, here in the United States. Dr. Kramer, thanks so much for coming onto the show.
Good evening.
When we look at that report there and that tragedy in India, how does something like this happen? Is there no regulation on food safety in developing countries?
Well, there are some regulations both by the governments themselves, and there's certainly guidance from the FAO and the WHO, the World Health Organization. However, this seems to be part and parcel of a much larger problem with insecticides. About 200,000 people in developing countries die each year from insecticide poisoning. And unfortunately, this tragedy certainly did not have to occur.
So what kind of role...
When you have a toxic...
Sorry, go ahead.
No, and I was going to say, when you have a toxic material in a container, it may never be used for food. So that is the single most important lesson to be learned. If you have cooking oil, it should be in a cooking oil container from the manufacturer or somehow in a brand new single-service or multi-service container that is properly labeled. Never should there be a cross-contamination or a reuse of anything that is toxic, whether it's a cleaner or an insecticide, and food, whether it's in any part of the food chain.
Right, and that is what the preliminary police investigation is telling us, that this was oil that was kept in a container that previously contained insecticide, and then the oil was used to cook the food that the children ate, and this is how they were poisoned.
Yes, it's a very tragic event. It can be prevented, and I'm sure that the Indian government is taking this extraordinarily seriously, and I hope that those children who are still alive get better. I know coming back from such a poisoning is very difficult, especially in rural hospitals. They said there's an antidote, which there is, it's atropine, but usually they need some sophisticated intensive care, oxygen and respiratory therapy, even intubation and ventilators. And I'm not so certain how many of them are in some of these very small rural communities.
Okay, as you said, this can be prevented. So what would be the best way for the Indian government, for example, to go about ensuring that there is food safety in a country like India, where I guess millions of people will be fed under the school program every day?
Well, I think there's 120 million children that are being fed under their school lunch program, if you will. And I think what they need to do is they should have, at the highest cabinet level, at the Ministry of Health, and what their equivalent of the Food and Drug Administration would be, is to have a very, very top-level meeting to discuss this, to make sure that when food is prepared, whether it's at the commissary or whether it's at the local school, that there are very, very strict, not only hygienic procedures, but we have to make sure that we're not only looking out for bacteriological or biological contaminants,
right,
physical contaminants such as glass and metal, but also chemicals. And since in that part of the world, insecticide is a problem, that has to be something that is really targeted. And hopefully their root cause analysis would be, would take that into account and institute a program. I don't think it's that difficult. I think the Indian government is very sophisticated and can do. And in terms of building the confidence back, right, I think that the Minister of Health and the Director of Food Safety should go to the community when the food is going to be produced, make an appearance, and sit down and eat with the children.
Okay, so we're going to have to leave it there. Dr. Mel Kramer from Florida, thanks for joining us.